You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast, episode number 145. 145. Approaching 150 very quickly. How's it going, Jake?
Oh, I think you introduced me wrong on this one. Usually I get called Big Buck Slayer, but Jake_Gaylord will do.
I was listening to... I accidentally clicked on the podcast the other day on the Apple app. And you came up, and the first thing you said, you're like, well... Can't be good looking and smart and kill big deer.
You can't have it all, you know.
God had to humble you in some way.
But let me tell you, God got really close. So
that reminds me of that meme. You remember that wizard where he was like pouring like magic out of a jar or something? He was like, and just a dash of sexy. Oops, and it's like a giant stream.
They were making me. If you guys didn't know.
Well, this last week we were talking about Kansas banning trail cameras, and there's some other controversial topics closer to home this week. Oklahoma.
Oh, dang it. You already ruined it. I was about to say, how much closer can you get if we were just talking about a bordering state, Kansas?
No closer besides the home state, the motherland. Oklahoma. Yes. Where the ones come sweeping down the plains, there is some big news in the Oklahoma land. Potential velvet buck season coming to Oklahoma. How did you learn about this, Jake? Where'd you see it? Did I send it to you?
You sent it to me, yes. Now it seems like it's not, like it seems like word's getting around. So there's kind of a little bit of a controversy rolling around, and usually we do controversy fairly well. Like, we like talking about that type of stuff. So
that's true. We do enjoy talking about that stuff. And it was funny. The first time that I saw the first time I saw the velvet thing, I was like, awesome. That was my first thought, was like, yeah, awesome. I'm going to be able to kill one in the summer now. But so just to break the ice a little bit, it's not as far down the road as a lot of people probably think. Jake, give us the overview. What's the news? What's going on with this?
So apparently there is a Senate bill. It's called Senate Bill 910, and it aims to create a 9-day archery season for bucks in velvet that would start the Saturday morning prior to the last weekend of August and go to the Sunday evening the last weekend of August as well. So basically it'd be a 9-day season, a velvet season, archery only. And it would be open to Oklahomans and a few out-of-staters as well.
So the breakdown was 90% residents, 10% non-residents, draw only, 2024 season start. What else did we miss on there? Was there anything else? That
it would be just on private land for the first year. So there wouldn't be any public land access to this part, but it would have the potential to be used on public land if everything goes pretty smooth.
So I will give a small shout out to Buck Ventures. We already had this podcast listed out on one of our ones to do. There's only so much news. So they got to it before us, but I do like Between the Brows podcast. I was listening to it today. And they were talking about how there's only 4 other states, I believe, in the country that are currently doing a velvet season. Could you imagine the public lands in Oklahoma if it became the 5th to do a velvet season? What would that look like for 9 days? Holy.
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing about this is like, like during the summer, whenever you go to check your cameras, you have your like if it's on private, you have your corn feeder set out, and you're just getting all those, picks that are so consistently. And you know how many times we were like, man, if only we could just sneak out there one day and
Right now.
try to poke one, because of course they're daylighting now, and I guarantee you come October 1 they're going to be nocturnal as a bat. I don't know what to compare it to, but you get the drift of it. But now that's kind of coming true. So, or it could potentially come true, because again, this is just a bill. It still has to go through some more legislative processes that are way above my pay ground. Yeah, way above my pay grade. I don't know. What's your first initial thoughts of it? Like, I know you said that at first you were like, yay, but then it almost seemed like you were kind of hesitant on it. Why is that?
So I've thought about the pros and cons. My first initial thoughts on it was, this is awesome. Like, selfishly, I have a really good piece of private land to hunt where I think I could kill a velvet buck. I really do think I kill a really good velvet buck. And so I was like, if I was one of the lucky ones that drew this tag, it'd be about as confident as I possibly could be on shooting a velvet buck. Never shot one, have always wanted to do velvet muley. I've actually kicked the idea with back and forth with you about like Tennessee velvet. They have a 3-day weekend. Yeah. So I was like, man, there would be nothing better than shooting a deer early in Oklahoma during the velvet, having one off the docket, and that would give me free permission to go to other states and enjoy. Right. With like, I shot a deer on October 1 this year. It was amazing because I'm like, okay, now I can go hunt Kansas. No regrets. I don't have to be like, I'm leaving stuff good back at home. It just wasn't that way. That's where my mind was initially.
It's funny because this last season, the 2022 season, we were kind of joking because you shot your 6x7, your biggest buck of your life, on October 1, which is like in the morning of October 1 too, right? So
15 minutes after daylight.
Yeah, so it was like literally within the first hour. And so we were joking. We're like, well, good luck killing one sooner than that. Yeah. And then now you have the opportunity. So that's pretty dang cool.
Yeah, they didn't give a lot of details on like what the breakdown was, how many people are going to draw. Initially it sounds really good, right? Because it's going to be like a draw thing, like just like the other draw opportunities in Oklahoma on some of the WMAs, the turkey hunts, the elk, all that antelope, all that other stuff, which is good because it's more revenue for the state. And I think the initial interest from folks is going to be very, very high. I think the residents are going to be really, really excited about it. It does go against your 2 buck limit, so it's not like an extra tag.
That's fine though.
It's awesome.
Which I think it's set up the right way. And so that's why I feel like more people, including myself, is kind of like for this, because I mean, if you could do things the wrong way, like Kansas just did with their trail cameras, or you can do things the right way, which thank God Oklahoma is like, if it's set up right. Now, granted, this could still completely go south if things get tweaked and changed and all that stuff. But like with that being said, like if they take steps in the right direction, I think this can be a beautiful thing, meaning like, keep it towards your 2 buck limit. And what would be really crazy is if like within this year, they're like, hey, we're also going to move Oklahoma to a 1 buck state. That'd be pretty crazy. And so with both of those being into effect, how would you feel about that? Like in that scenario?
Now I'm sad.
You know what I mean though?
Yeah. It'd be like you get your first buck, your first velvet buck. You're like, I'm done. It's summer
in Oklahoma though, but it's fine. Yeah. Like then you're like, well, you know, I still got time to make a game plan if worst case, but I don't see that becoming an issue just because like, why would they be opening up a velvet season if there wasn't like, if there was not a strain on the resource, you know what I mean? Like if there was a strain, there would be like, okay, 1 buck limit, but with them being opening up this velvet season, then, you know, obviously they're not straining. So I doubt the 1 buck would happen.
It's probably one of my favorite things about the proposed bill was you're not adding to the strain of the resource by adding another buck. Because a lot of WMAs, when you hunt in Oklahoma and you draw out for them, they're like, okay, this is a bonus buck, right? Like you can go and shoot a 3rd buck. And it's like, kind of defeats the point. We got this 2 buck limit, right? And we're handed you another tag just because you're coming out in this area.
Is Tennessee that way?
I do not know. I don't know. I have not done any research into Tennessee.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily like that but this is all on private land, so it definitely makes sense. Like, it's not like you're drawing out for this one management area that has a velvet season special, right? And there's only 75 permits. It's not like that. Since it's on the private resource, I think it makes a lot of sense to go towards your limit.
Do you know how many tags they're going to give out for this?
No, and that's one of the things that I think everybody's like waiting with their fingers crossed. Like, what if they come out, they're like, all right, 1,000 tags. It's like, frick, there's 100,000 bow hunters in this state, and they're going to have 1,000 tags. Like,
which that would make it heavy on the preference points type thing, right? Like where you'd have to wait probably multiple years to draw out, obviously. Yeah. But would that be a bad thing though?
I don't know. I mean, there's something mysterious about a velvet animal just because like there's not a whole lot of opportunities to hunt them, especially in the South. So having a velvet animal, it'd be something I'd be willing to wait for. If it's something that I could do every 5 years, I'd be like, gosh, this is awesome. You know, this is my velvet year. Yeah.
So as a resident, right? Because you and I have been pretty religious on trying to apply for all those Oklahoma draw hunts, like the elk, the antelope, all that good stuff. Do you think it's just going to be like just tacking on to that system where it's just $5, or do you think it's going to go up for the residents?
I don't know. I don't see a reason that they would raise it more than the $5. They're not included in that original application process. So Oklahoma's pretty cool for a resident because you pay $5 and you can apply to all of them, right? It's the elk, the antelope, the deer, the turkey, all of it. So it's a really good deal. But for a non-resident, that was one of the things that was kicked back and forth is like, what's it going to cost? If it is very limited, I bet if it's not, it should be a pretty penny.
So here's my thing on that, because I know I listened to that portion of the Buck Ventures podcast as well, where they were talking about it. And I think Cole said, which we had Cole Cannon on the podcast not too long ago.
Yep.
He was saying that he thought it should be like kind of north of 600. Was that right?
I think he said 750 or 800.
Yeah. So I agree on that somewhat. Like, I think it should be elevated pretty significantly. I don't know about that high, because the thing is, like, and again, this is another talking point too, the season's only like 9 days. That's basically 2 weekends if you're a blue collar guy that you can come to and fro. But with that being said, you know, also 9 days is sometimes a lot. If it was like a rifle tag or something, I'd be like 9 days is too much. But for being a bow tag and only on private or whatever, then, I mean, you have to, I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to kind of take that into consideration when I think pricing the non-residence tag for that or entry fee.
One of the things to consider too on the pricing is not only is it a short season, but one of the first things that Cole said was like, I think a new state record is going to get killed. I think your odds.
You think so?
I think your odds of killing a deer in the last week of August versus the first week of October, where I hunt on non-pressure public land, will be like 3x. Like, I think not even necessarily where I hunt. You could kill one October 1st on some of the places we get to hunt. But I really think those deer are extremely patternable. They have no pressure, especially on private. Think about baiting. Like, you can't go out on a bean field in late October or late August and smoke one.
Could you imagine like those deer that are out there being like, you know, like, oh, you know, I still got fuzz on my antlers. Like, I'm good. Nothing's hunting me right now. And then all of a sudden, like, old Timmy gets stroked, and it's just like, what is happening right now? That's
yeah. The deer are probably relaxing in the summer, and then after like 2 years of this, they'll be like, dude, we got it. As soon as you start growing, they start stroking.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's exciting. I hope it happens. I think they really thought through it when they thought about the implications of the bag limit, the strain on the resource, the private land at first, right? Think about if they would have came out and said, hey, we're going to have a 9-day season, counts towards your bag limit, we're going public land. Everyone would be like, whoa. I think that would have halted a lot of people. There would have been probably a bucket of people that were extremely excited, and then a bucket of people that were like, this is bull crap. Here come more non-residents.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, obviously there's still time to like tweak everything. And so they could really, like we said before, they could really fudge some stuff up. But for the most part, like, it, as long as they keep on this path, like, it's going to be a beautiful thing for sure.
Do you think you could get it done on private?
On private? I mean, yeah, but here's the thing, like on my private, it almost feels like they don't summer on my private. So it's just like one of those things like, now you're really hoping and praying that the neighbor doesn't draw out, which again, on the flip side, you can still hurt your property in August just the same as you could, like opening weekend in October. You can
pressure.
still run that trophy buck out just as easily then, somewhat, I guess. But then you'd have August, September. You'd have all September for the cool down too. So I don't know. It's tough to say.
What's exciting? What would be exciting on some of the places I hunt is like you could shoot a deer in August and opening day would be like, let's go. Like,
yeah,
you really could. You really could. I don't really know how to work. One of the potential cons of it could be the lease prices driven by demand from non-residents, because now non-residents can't come and hunt it on public, right? So any non-resident's going to be hunting has to have a property on private over either permission or a lease.
So, yeah, but how many people's going to buy? Now, granted, no, I don't think that would work either. How many people's going to buy a lease for the non-res or just for that 9-day season? Now, granted, I guess they could buy a over-the-counter tag regardless and just, have that lease. So even if they draw out for that, they'll be ready. But yeah, I guess that's true. It could drive up stuff. So therefore, your lease might go up even more now.
It might. It might. I mean, I could see that though. Like, think about it from if Oklahoma remains an over-the-counter state, you come, you get your lease, you draw out on a really good year, you're going to want to get a really good lease because of the velvet. And then, oh, by the way, you can also hunt for $300 more. You can get 2 buck tags and 6 doe tags. So for over the counter. So there's really, from a non-resident's perspective, there's not a whole lot of extra burden if you just draw out for the velvet season, because you can just easily go over the counter and buy tags cheap if you have a lease.
That's true.
It'd be honestly, from a non-resident's perspective, there's not a lot. Like if you drew out for a Oklahoma velvet season, that would be, and you could find a lease, it'd be a good deal for you.
Yeah, it would. It would. So I didn't ask you, what do you think is a good price point for that then? Like for the non-resident velvet?
I don't know. It's so sought after, right? I'm not a macro or a microeconomist or whatever, but I did take some macro and microeconomics. Supply and demand. C's get degrees. There's going to be a lot of demand, right? Especially since it's a longer velvet season. Some other states have velvet weekends. This is literally it's like a muzzleloader season. It's 9 days.
Basically.
So it's a lot of opportunity in a great state on a time where I think it's easier to kill a deer. They should be somewhat expensive. I don't know what exactly that means. Like, what stinks is when you're buying the tag, you're not getting to hunt the whole season based on that one special permit that you drew out, right? So I think that has to be in consideration. Like, for instance, when we draw out for Kansas, we get to hunt the whole season in Kansas, right? Not a 9-day period. So if, I don't know, $300, $400, it's pretty.
I would think $450. That's what I would think, because it's like attainable, but also it's just like you'll notice it's gone. You know what I mean?
It'll hurt the bank account.
Yeah.
But
because I don't know, because since it's and the only reason I'm not saying like $550 like a Kansas tag is for the non-resident is just because it is that 9-day season. You know what I mean?
It's quick. That's quick.
Yeah. So I think $4 or $425 to $450, somewhere like in the $4 to $450 range. I think that would be like fair.
That sounds fair. You want it to be worth it for, one of the goals that they talked about in the News on 6 article that I read was they were trying to attract non-residents to the state. So if they're trying to attract all these non-residents to the state, you want them to be able to the wildlife department to be able to capitalize and make some good money off of this season.
Yeah, but I'm still kind of stuck on the price point, because like, think of the average Joe, right? Like, how many times did we go to Kansas, you think, to hunt?
I know you the whole season.
Yeah, I know you and I went pretty frequently, like
We went 3 times before November, and then like a week in November.
Okay, so but
4
like
times.
for the average person, okay, so I'll let you finish. How many days total?
Oh, in Kansas, we probably hunted, including the late season too.
Mm-hmm.
Like 12, 13.
12 or 13 days. Okay.
Probably.
So for the average Joe, I don't think and I'm not saying we're above the average Joe or anything like that. I just think we went a few more times than the average person would. So with that being said, I think the average person might spend 5 to 6 days in Kansas for their $550 tag that they use all season. I think most people are only going to go 5 to 7 days, if that. So what's the difference in the price point? So they have a 9-day season. You could take your vacation then and go all that. And so now I can kind of see like charging $550 for that. You know what I mean? Like if you break it down like that.
Yeah, I think
that makes sense at all. Or
yeah, but when you have a super long season, you give people the opportunity to like to
plan out
build their schedule around like people have families, they have obligations. Right. Like it's not like when you have it in August though, it is one of those things that you can't have too much empathy because when you put in for the tag, you knew when the hunt was. That's you know true. What I mean? It's not like you're like, what, August? No idea. No, that's not going to happen. I don't know the price. $5 for residents. I'll take that.
Absolutely. But non-resident wise,
I don't know. It's got to be expensive because I feel like when something's expensive, you hold it in a different regard. And I want it to be like a gym, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah, you want it to be something that's coveted. It's like people want like.
So therefore, they don't want to shoot like a 2-year-old because it's like that's might be a $500 2-year-old.
Yeah, or if you make it not a lot of non-residents, like there's 9 to 1 ratio. If it takes a while to draw out, then people are going to hold it in a different regard too. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. So. Do you think people would scout different, like for that season at all
on their private?
Yeah, like do you think they would try to do anything differently?
Make sure the feeder's full,
right? Obviously.
Yeah, probably a food pattern. I think that'd probably be a good one. Like people would catch deer on beans in the the later part of the summer, the ender part of the summer. I think people would probably start. That'd be awesome to go out there and hunt food and see a ton of velvet bucks. Like imagine hunting a bean field in late August and there's like 5 velvet bucks. Think about the bachelor groups that could come into that.
That's what I'm saying. Awesome. Those bachelor groups, I mean, they like it. They like each other then. But some out-of-staters, if they're listening to this, might not know. But like in August, it can still be like 93 degrees or
100.
Yeah, and it's still pretty hot. And let me tell you, we got our fair share of ticks and mosquitoes.
Yeah, it's not going to be. You're going to be sweating.
Yeah, it's not going to be walking the park because it's so it's going to suck in that aspect. It's like, okay, now I got to pick literally seed ticks off of me while I'm having a little bit of what's Carol say? Famunda cheese.
Famunda cheese. Yeah.
Your booty gets hot basically. And so that's in a way that's not going to be too fun, but I don't know.
Think about this though. Beautiful velvet horns. Those deer have the reddish summer coat. That coat that helps disperse moisture. That would be beautiful on a mount, like a summer coat, freaking velvet horns. Like I see some of the Tennessee ones and they look awesome. That is
true. That is true. So with that being said, like I think we asked, what's that taxidermist name we had on the podcast not too long ago?
I'm trying to remember.
Sloan.
Craig Sloan. Yep.
Yes. Didn't we ask him about like how to preserve velvet antlers?
Yeah, we did.
And it was something. I think it was something with like salt water or whatever. That's something that it probably needs to be common knowledge sooner than later. Because for most people, like especially Oklahomans, I mean, I know we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here, but like that's exciting. Like now, granted, we probably won't have to worry about that near as much because preserving them or whatnot. For the most part, I think he was talking about like that backcountry mule, like velvet stuff where you going to have hours upon hours before you can get it back to the taxidermist and they can like, I guess, freeze dry them or however they do their thing.
Yep.
But, yeah, so I guess it won't be too big of an issue because it'll be like kind of like a cut and paste thing. You can get it to your taxidermist pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's the good thing is if you shoot one of those, you're prepared and you can probably get there quickly. And if you're in a border state or even if you come from across the country, I think you'd be able to get there quickly enough not to run those antlers.
Either that or, I mean, at least get ice on them pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I did want to read a quote from, I think this is an Oklahoma Senator Stevens. This is one of the motivations behind the bill itself, Bill 910. He quoted and said, Oklahoma's tourism industry would greatly benefit from introducing a velvet buck season, as only a few states offer this season. Hunters from across the country will be looking to travel to our state to take part in the first season and many thereafter. You think Oklahoma's tourism would benefit? I think it would drive a lot of folks here. The issue is how many of that 10%, how many's going to be in that?
See, that's the only thing that really worries me about that is like, what is that 10% going to hold? Like, is that 10% of 1,000 tags? That 10% of 3,000? You know what I mean?
I think if they're looking at it from the lens of it's going to greatly benefit the tourism industry, that's got to be a lot of people. You know, like, because 100 people coming to your state, that's going to be in the thousands of dollars probably, or tens of thousands of dollars.
Hear me out, though. What do you think they're going to do with this extra money?
I don't know. They should get some more land is what they should do.
That's what I'm saying. Is this going to be the next Kansas where people can walk up on beautiful bean fields and stuff like that? Or what do you think you're going to do with it? Because if it's going to greatly benefit, then it's going to greatly benefit conservation in Oklahoma. So what are they going to put in for that?
I don't know. I think in the subsequent years, when they start offering it on public land, it would make a whole lot of sense that they're like, hey, we're bringing in these non-residents. We're charging a premium for this coveted season. And with that money, we're going to either improve these WMAs in these ways, or we're going to buy more. Right. I think the more people you bring in, the more revenue in, the more land you need to disperse those people upon. Right. That's how I think about it.
I got an idea. Do exactly what you said, but sell CAW WMA. Sell that to
the lowest bidder.
Sell it to Kansas. It's close enough to Kansas. We can just give you that. How about that? And then Kansas can make that work. And they're going to be like, oh, we'll whip you into shape really quick. And then sooner or later, it's like, okay, we want it back now.
Once they get it to a good point.
Exactly. So that's basically my management plan. And so vote for me on your next city council.
World War III up at CAW.
It is though, dude. That place is great for pig hunting.
Yeah, that's true. It's very good for pig hunting. So do you think deer, we were talking about this before the podcast and we had to cut ourselves off so we wouldn't talk too deep about it. Do you think deer are bigger have bigger antlers in the velvet? Inches wise.
Yeah, I said I think so. And from what we were talking about earlier, I said because just the way my mind thinks. So take this with a grain of salt. This is not any part fact. Okay, this is just my
bro science.
Yes, my bro science. So my thinking is, I think a hard-horned buck and a velvet buck, the velvet buck would, on that same deer, would have about 10 inches bigger score-wise. So it would add on 10 inches from a velvet rack than it would on a hard-horned rack. And the reason why is because I think when the antlers are full of blood, it's kind of swelled up a little bit, and which would add like maybe an eighth, 4/8 inches here or there, because you got to take the 4 mass measurements and then, probably a little bit on top of each tine. And so when it's all said and done, I think like the average, like mainframe 8 or 10 would probably add around 10 inches.
The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
And the only reason I say I think it swells a little bit when there's like, blood in there during the summer would be just because think about when you shoot a deer that is hard-horned, right? Well, before you can officially score it, it has to have that drying period. And we all see a little bit of shrinkage on that. So you would think that from a velvet to the hard-horn stage, it would almost somewhat multiply just from the extent of the drying, like how it dries.
Yeah.
So like that's my thinking. Now, I'm sure there's someone on here that actually knows what the heck's going on. And if you're listening to this and I'm completely wrong, I'm sorry. But that's just my thinking.
I agree with you because like you look at velvet pictures throughout the summer and you're like, okay, that looks like a monster. Like I remember
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Looking at summer pictures with Justin sometimes as a kid and just being like, oh my God, that deer looks 160 inches. And then you look at it, it's like a 135 inch 8. And you're like, huh, like they look so much smaller without the velvet on. And I think where you would get your biggest inches gained in the velvet would be your mass measurements. Like, yeah, I really think so, because you're going to get a lot of them. You're going to get 8 of them. You see, like, it almost looks like most deer that are mature in the summer, it looks like they have baseball bat antlers with velvet, because it looks so much wider than normal. And you got to think too, like you said, on each point, maybe gain an 1/8 or a couple 8s. That velvet sits like a sheath on a knife. Like it just sits over like a covering. Well, that's going to make it longer immediately because it has to sit on top of the fully formed bone. Because in late August, it's probably going to be fully developed. So it's just sitting on top of it at that point.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And we thought I remember when we saw the 6x7 last summer, like we were like, oh, that's a high 50s, low 60s type deer. Granted, we were excited. But it probably, now the more I think about it, it probably was a 150s in the summer.
I think it, very easily could have been, yeah.
And then they strip all that off and you lose a 1/2 inch here, a 1/2 inch there, an 1/8 here, 2/8 there. That stuff adds up on a lot of points. It does add up
pretty quick.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. And with that, it makes me think that there's going to be some monsters killed in the velvet. Some monsters. Because you think about a 170 inch deer or 180 inch deer, that might add more than 10 inches.
That is, I mean, yeah, the more points, obviously, like the more 8s and stuff, kind of like what you said. But I don't know, man. Like I know on the Buck Ventures podcast, I know we keep referring to that, but that's because we listened to it because obviously we were planning on doing this, but then we're like, oh, they come out with the first, so we got to listen, see what they talk about, that sort of thing. But like, did you already touch on that he said that there could have been a state record killed, or there could be a state record killed?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I can see kind of what you're getting at is like they're obviously bigger in velvet and stuff, but I don't know if that makes them, that means there is going to be a state record killed, because is the first couple of years probably the best time, like the start of this velvet season, it being open so early. I think within the first couple of years, that would be the time for an older deer like that to slip up, because they're like, hey, I kind of know like that mental clock they have inside their heads, because it seems like, dude, I feel like you and I and everybody else that could potentially be listening to this, know. Like, it seems like deer know. Deer know. They have a mental clock inside their heads that it's just like summer, they're going to be daylighting. They're going to be, on your field, walking by your trail camera, broad daylight. And, you're getting all excited during late summer. You're like, here we go. October 1st rolls around. If he keeps doing the same thing, it's going to be a very early season success for me. And then all of a sudden, October 1st rolls around and he's nowhere to be found. I guarantee almost everybody has that experience, and they know. So with this being, brand new and those bigger, mature, monarchs walking around, they think they got time. Their mental clock hasn't struck 12 yet. So my thinking is like within the first couple of years, yeah, like there could be a state record killed, but anything past that, then they're gonna learn pretty quick.
I agree, but I do think that we know as they start to shed their velvet, testosterone levels are spiking, and that's why they're starting to shed it off. That's what triggers them. That's what makes them disperse right at the end of the summers, because they can no longer be around each other because they're about to throw some hands. Well, my thoughts are the reason an absolute monster could get killed in the first couple years or in the summer is all those bucks are so conjugated together. Like you could go into one spot and you're going to see the majority of your bucks at a good food source. Whereas in the summer or in the fall, one's going to be over here, one's going to be over there, one's going to be half a mile away, 3/4 of a mile that way. In the summer, it's almost like you're putting them all together in one small spot if you have a good feed source on a private land that's not pressured. And my thoughts are that's going to help a lot.
So I agree with that, but I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate on this, and I want you to answer this. But if they're all bachelored up, that might mean, that's just another set of eyes to see you. That's another set of nostrils to smell you. That's another set of ears to hear you. Because we've all been around those doe groups that, there's like two nanny does and then like two of the last year's offspring, they've kind of grown up, taken the mom's god awful stomping capabilities whenever they kind of wind you or something. That's like, and so when you try to draw back on that big nanny, that you have all those eyes that are just don't seem to stop looking around, like they got schizophrenia or whatever. So you think bucks are would be kind of like that same way, especially when they're bachelored up? Now I know like bucks are kind of somewhat more mellow, but you know what I mean? Like there's just, you got a whole new set of challenges right there if they're all grouped together.
Yeah, it's not going to be like shooting fish out of a barrel.
Right.
We're probably making it sound a little bit too easy, but there's always that chance. Like you're right. If you ask me my dream scenario on shooting a big buck, I'd say strolling in by himself.
Yeah.
That would be with no does around, no other deer around. That would be my dream scenario. So I guess if you're keeping all those other bucks around in the summer, it could be a problem, but it's a problem I'm willing to fight.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
I'm a warrior. I'll do it. Inevitably, you're going to see it on Facebook, dude. Some guy's going to smoke a giant on public and be like, got my velvet.
You think so?
Oh, 100%.
Damn it, Billy.
Somebody's going to do it. Because every year I see on Facebook, these Facebook hunting groups where somebody tells on themselves and people are in the comments like, you should probably delete this, bud. And then it's gone. Somebody's going to go on public and shoot a giant and be like, oops.
Misunderstood. Well, I don't know. Like, yeah, maybe.
They kept it
You always
simple.
have those people.
You do.
It's like family, you can't pick them.
You can't pick them. I think to sum it up, Oklahoma did a great job on keeping it simple. So far, they're going to come out with the next rev of this, and it's going to be like, all right, you can take $2, doesn't count towards your bag limit, 90% non-residents, 10%, and we're going to be like, dude,
it's free. Awesome. It's free.
Actually, we're going to tax the residents to pay for you guys.
I mean, they're just following Kansas model, Like, yeah. I think that's why we're kind of iffy about it, to be honest. Like this is honestly a great thing, but
it seems a little too good to be true.
But I think that's due to the whole Kansas situation. It's just like, why'd they ban trail cameras? I don't know.
Yeah, I hope that our Senator Stevens, that was talking a big game, I hope he sees it to the end.
Stevens or Steffens?
I can't read if that's Steffens. Is that not Stevens?
How's it spelled?
PH is a V too. It sounds like a V.
But not the I before E.
There's not an I. You're just trying to use random grammatical facts to make me sound stupid.
Just trying to make you sound photosynthesis is all.
Now you got me paranoid.
You Googling it?
Yeah.
How is Steven with PH spelled?
That's Steven.
Okay.
Senator Steffens.
Hey, I don't know.
That didn't sound right to me.
Neither does Gaylord, but hey, that's my last name.
That's true. They're just Babcock.
I remember when we first started doing TikToks, like one of the comments that I'll never forget, it had like 20 likes, and the dude just had a whole bunch of laughy faces, and he said, "Are these actually these guys' last names, or are they just trying to be funny?" Christian Babcock and Jake Gaylord. And someone was like, "No, that's actually their names," and I was like, "Well,
that's funny."
I was born with it.
If we got Lauren on here with her maiden name, it'd be the trifecta. My wife's last name used to be Moorhead. Moorhead, and then she was probably like waiting to be saved by some knight in a shining tower, and then I come along and I'm like, I got Babcock. It's the best I can do.
Why couldn't you be a damn Smith? You know, a Johnson.
I could have been a Smith. I know I wasn't blessed. Hey, like you said though, God can't give us. He can't give it all.
You got to pick and choose, and you know,
we don't have it like that. Anyways, guys, if you made it this far in the podcast and you put up with us, we do have a video version of the podcast that's out now. It's called Hunter's Advantage Podcast on YouTube. And if you want to see us laugh in real life, you can go check out that one. We post every version of the audio. We post a video version on YouTube. It's really cool. We need to get the subs up over there. So go check that out.
Got some really good guests coming up.
We do got some good guests coming up. I've been pulling my weight in the guest booking department.
So just to give a little teaser, I'm not going to name drop or anything like that because it very well could not work out. But so far, they're both like, yeah, sounds great. Next month, the month of April, probably mid-April, we're going to start this, and it's going to be Science Month.
Deer Science Month, baby.
Deer Science Month. And I think we're going to go over the eyesight, the old eardrums, and the old nose piece.
Yep. And one bonus episode from a special guest opening up the keynote.
Might be one of my favorite guests.
Yeah. One of the best deer scientists in the country. I'll leave it at that. Go do your guessing. And we're also going to have one of the best bow hunters on the planet on next week. So we got some great guests coming your way.
Funny enough, he was on this episode too.
Was he? He's been on every episode.
I'm just saying, the best bow hunter. I'm right here, guys. I'm right here. I'll be here next week too.
Yeah. So we got some good episodes coming up. What else we got for him, Jake? Any housekeeping notes?
Yeah, guys, if you didn't know already, we are partnered with Out on a Limb Manufacturing. They're an Oklahoma-based company. So basically what I'm trying to say is now's the time to do your little spring cleaning, get all your gadgets in order. And what I'm trying to say is you need any saddle equipment, platforms, camera arms, even trail cams. You need those mounts for those things. Out on a Limb makes them. And let me tell you, we've been using their stuff for a while, way before any of this partnership stuff. And why is that? Because it's by far one of the lightest, if not the lightest thing on the market right now, platform-wise. Also, it's Oklahoma-based company, support local business. But beside the point, it's very good stuff. But if you guys happen to need something and you're wanting and you find something you like, use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout.
Anyways, thank you guys for checking out the podcast. We will catch you guys in the next episode.
Jesus loves you.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the Hunter's Advantage podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.